Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. The top stories at this hour. Ighodalo declared winner of Edo PDP governorship primaries. Lagos State Governor rolls out measures to cushion effects of economic hardship. Violence in Mozambique's northern region displaces thousands. Details of these stories and more shortly. We begin the news in Nigeria, where renowned businessman Asuwe Ighodalo has won the People's Democratic Party governorship primary for Edo State, beating about 9 other candidates, including the deputy governor of the state, in the election held in Benin City on Thursday. The exercise was held at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in the Edo State capital, with Ighodalo polling 577 to emerge as the state's ruling party's governorship candidate for the September 2024 election. The chairman of the Edo State Electoral Committee and Governor Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State declared him the winner of the exercise. Meanwhile, in a parallel primary held on Thursday, the state deputy governor Philip Shaibu emerged as the candidate for the September 21 election. We now join News Central's correspondent Bernard Akede, who is on ground monitoring all the development in Edo State. Thank you for joining us, Bernard. So can you give us an update of what has actually transpired during the PDP primaries from the last time we spoke up until now?
All right, well, the primaries here have been concluded, and it took place at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium right there behind me. You can see in a distance. It was pretty smooth. Started later than we expected, and well, the results came out. It was pretty much unanimous, so to speak. If landslide had a definition, I would say that the result of what we saw here was the definition of landslide victory. I'll quickly read that out to you. Now, the total accredited delegates who came here and were accredited, I beg your pardon, is 585 from the 18 local government areas in the state. The total void votes out of all that were cast were just 6. And of all the other votes left, Philip Shaibu, the deputy governor, had 1 vote, while Asuwe Ighodalo had 577 votes. Now, of the 10 aspirants who came here to contest for the position, 3 of them stepped down, or rather 2 stepped down, and then 1 threw her weight behind Asuwe Ighodalo. So that left 7 major contestants here. Of those 7, of course, Asuwe Ighodalo won with landslide victory.
The governor of Edo State, that's Obaseki, come out to say anything about the winner of this primaries? Because I seem to remember that his deputy is actually was also a contestant.
Yes, his deputy was a contestant. His deputy was one of those who did not show up at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium for the primaries. The governor didn't say anything before the contest or even after the contest. All he did was to congratulate the winner. He also, well, he gave a speech before it started and said that what is most important is the party, that no candidate is bigger than the party, and that whoever comes out as a winner or whoever comes out victorious here, that the party will support such an individual. And then when eventually Asuwe Ighodalo won the election, he congratulated him and wished him all the best and said that the party will throw their weight behind him and that they will support him come the general elections in September later this year.
So how would you compare the process during the PDP primaries to that of the APC?
I think I would like to start from here. Now, we heard that there was going to be another primaries held by the APC today, again, simultaneously, while the PDP was running their own. While we were at the stadium here, we heard that even this, would I say, second primary election organized by the APC also ended in crisis. I'm waiting to get full information, but that's what I heard. So if you put the two together, you will see that there's a gulf of difference between the APC and the PDP's primary elections. Whether it was in the conduct or in the organization, or even in the way it was carried out. If you remember that the APC, they had the election at different wards all around the state, but the PDP own was in one, just one center here, the tennis court of the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium. So what they did was to bring all the delegates down here as regards, creating polling units or polling stations in the different local governments. So it was easier for them to conduct everything in one particular place and to control everything that they had to work with.
We also heard that the Labour Party were conducting their own primaries while the PDP primaries was actually ongoing as well, despite the arrest of the national chairman, that's Abure, yesterday. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we're also still waiting for information concerning Labour Party, but we did hear that, yes, they conducted their own primaries. And we also heard that the arrest of their national chairman did not affect the process of their primaries. I also read recently that the national chairman was released in the early hours of the morning, of this morning actually. While we await further information concerning Labour parties, all we have for now is that their primaries did take place and it was smooth and that they did not have any issues. We still await further information concerning the Labour Party's primaries.
All right, well, thank you so much, Bernard Akede, for joining me and speaking on this.
Thank you for having me.
All right, moving away from that, the Trade Union Congress in Nigeria has withdrawn from the planned two-day nationwide protest announced by the Nigeria Labour Congress over the lingering cost of living crisis and economic hardship in the country. The TUC had earlier communicated its grievance over the planned protest to the NLC in a letter dated February 19, 2024 by its Secretary General, Dr. Nuhu Toro. In the letter addressed to the NLC President, Joe Ajero, the trade union faulted the process the Labour Congress adopted in fixing the date for the protests. The TUC argued that the dates for the protest should have been collectively decided since both unions had jointly issued a two-week ultimatum to the government. In the meantime, the Lagos State Governor of Southwest Nigeria, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on Thursday said his administration would be reducing public servants' working days as part of plans to cushion the cost of living crisis in the country. Addressing residents of the state during a live interview on the rising cost of food, the governor had added that his administration would open more markets where Lagosians can buy food items at discounted rates. Governor Sanwo-Olu said the 25% reduction in transport services will start this weekend for the state public transport system, including the bus, train, and ferry. The governor noted that his administration was also in discussions with various transport unions to reduce fares.
What are we planning to do? We're planning to build a storage facility, cold, dry, facility that can help push, when we have to push produce and product to our citizens, using that hub as a receiver, of large produce. So we're going to be having even trading, facilities there. This is the hub that will be doing things like the aggregator, ensure that all of the yam people that are coming from Benue, all of the tomato they can have offtake from there. They can know that once they're coming, there's somebody that will write the check. And that facility will be able to, the ones that will not go to the market because of perishability, and storing, will have the opportunity to stay in that facility. And we're happy that we took that decision 2 years ago. The facility will be ready, should be completed before the end of this year. And it's something that we're truly grateful for, that we took that decision.
Meanwhile, the president of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has revealed that the federal government recently disbursed 30 billion naira to each of the 36 state governments to tackle the food crisis. He disclosed this during plenary as lawmakers debated necessary measures to prevent the looming famine and make foodstuff affordable for Nigerians. Nigerian citizens are currently grappling with food crisis caused by insecurity, ballooning inflation, and the eroding purchasing power of the masses. However, Akpabio claimed that the President Bola Tinubu-led government has provided funds to all the state governments to ensure that food is available across the country. In the meantime, Governor of Oyo State in southwest Nigeria, Seyi Makinde, has denied allegations that the 36 state governors received a sum of 30 billion naira each to address the current hardships in their respective states. Governor Makinde was responding to recent allegations made by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, who stated that an unverified report claimed the governors had collected 30 billion naira from the federal government. The governor, who reacted to this during the commissioning of Ishain Central Mosque in Ishain, questioned why Senator Akpabio would make such a statement, knowing well that it was an unverified information. He added that it is not feasible for the Federal Inland Revenue Service to issue money to any state, emphasizing that the funds in the Federation account are intended for the benefit of Nigerians and not for distribution among the states. To more economic hardship stories, former Nigerian Vice President Atiku Abubakar recently launched a scathing attack on the economic policies of President Bola Tinubu's administration, blaming the government's wrong policies for the spiraling currency fluctuation, rise in poverty, and overall economic distress plaguing the nation. In this report, Lekan Onabanjo takes a look at the alternative solutions preferred by Atiku and how well it will change the country's deplorable economic narrative.
In a statement, the ex-vice president and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, slammed the hastily implemented forex management policy of the Bola Tinubu-led administration, claiming it lacked proper planning and stakeholder consultation. He said this, including the restriction of the country's apex bank from total independence, are causing retrogression for the largest economy in Africa.
If you look at the policies, is it the removal of fuel subsidy or the floating of the naira? It was more or less like an impromptu action with Atiku, especially as regard what is happening now in the area of the exchange rate. If you want to do floating system, you need to have the liquidity and you need to know what is the true value of your currency. About the independence of the CBN, I think I don't totally agree with him, because again, the CBN is not totally independent. It's only independent when it comes to monetary policy.
Instead of the current free-floating system, Atiku advocated for a gradualist approach, that is, a managed float system. This would, according to him, allow the naira to fluctuate daily, but the CBN would strategically intervene to control and stabilize its value, curbing speculative activities.
The challenge the naira has now, why it has moved to where it is just based on a lack of supply. It's a supply issue.
The presidency, however, swiftly responded to Atiku's criticisms, vehemently rejecting his proposed controlled float and other claims, citing figures from the National Bureau of Statistics for Q4 2023 that Nigeria recorded a 66.27% increase in capital inflow from $654.65 million to $1.09 billion compared with Q3 2023.
They will come up with a counter claim. It's less for us to know if that counter claim is even working, because whatever counter claim they are saying, they have attract capital importation. But you and I just got to know that capital importation has also been greatly reduced.
While both Atiku and the presidency acknowledge the dire situation, their proposed solutions still have crucial questions unanswered. That is, will Tinubu's reform succeed in bringing economic stability? And when will Nigerians find reprieve in this harsh economic situation? In Lagos, for News Central, Lekan Onabanjo.
Well, let's also tell you that the Nigerian Senate on Thursday confirmed 12 members for the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria with a charge to immediately formulate policies to salvage the country's ailing economy. The MPC is made up of CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso as chairman and 11 others as members. The confirmation followed the presentation of the report of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions headed by Senator Adetokunbo Abiru. Senator Abiru told his colleagues that the nominees are not only experienced in their field, but also possess the requisite qualifications to excel in the MPC.
Appointments are in accordance with the provisions of the Act, that the nominees possess the requisite qualification, that we did not receive any petition against any of the nominees, and that the nominees have been cleared by the Nigerian Police Force, Department of State Security, and they have their Code of Conduct acknowledgement slips. Recommendations. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions, after robust engagement with the nominees and being satisfied with their experiences, performances, and academic qualifications, do hereby recommend as follows: that the Senate do confirm the nomination of all the underlisted members as members of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as members of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and approved the nominations of Olayemi Kadoso as chairman, Mohammed Sani Abdullahi as member, Bala Bello as member, Ememu Soro as member, Philip Ikazo as member, Jafia Lydia Shehu as member, Lamido Yuguda as member, Moritala Sabo Sagagi as member, Aloysius Uche Odu as member, Agu Pauline Odinkemelu as member, Mustafa Akiumi as member, and Bandele Eji Amo as member. So this approval by the Senate is for the chairman and members of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. I wish them well and pray that they will use their expertise to redirect the monetary policies, including even contributions to the fiscal policies, to ensure that Nigeria gets out of the current economic quagmire.
News Central now returns after the break. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now let's head to Borno State in northeast Nigeria, where UNICEF, the state government, and various partners have strengthened forces to address the issue of child soldiers. Now this was during an event to commemorate the 2024 International Day Against the Use of Child Soldiers, also known as Red Hand Day in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Like most places experiencing conflicts across the globe, Nigeria is battling with addressing the use of children by armed groups. This prevailing issue of concern is what stakeholders are discussing here, with a view to nip the problem in the bud through proactive measures.
To be engaged with the private sector, because after providing some vocational trainings for those children, we will need to be linking them with the private sector for some job opportunities, right?
We must continue to call for advocacy. We must continue to create awareness. We must engage every member of the society. The military can't do it alone. Borno State government can't do it alone. UNICEF can't do it alone.
All suspects arrested by frontline units are transferred to the Joint Investigation Center, while those who are surrendered are handed over to Bulunkutu camp. At the Joint Investigation Center, the suspects are profiled, screened, and investigated. Thus, the center discovered to be minors are promptly handed over to the Borno State Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development.
This initiative underscores our collective commitment to address the root causes of conflict and build a more inclusive future for all.
The root causes of child recruitment, including poverty, lack of education, and vulnerability, have been identified as some of the bottlenecks.
UNICEF since 2017 has supported the social and economic reintegration of over 9,000 boys and girls released from the armed groups. We've returned them to their communities safely. We provide them with psychosocial support, vocational skills training, and informal apprenticeships.
Strengthen efforts in protecting children from recruitment, providing necessary services for their emotional healing, and ensuring their integration back into the society is also regarded as a key component of maintaining peace. This holistic approach aims to break the cycle of violence and provide a safe environment for children. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Now to discuss this further, I'm joined by UNICEF Chief of Borno Field Office, Fong T. Ngoyeng. Hello, Fong. Thank you so much for joining me on the news.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right, so can you tell us more about the initiatives that have contributed to the successful reintegration of over 2,000 children associated with armed groups in Nigeria by the UNICEF?
Absolutely. And I'd like to say that the day of 12 February is a day where we commemorate the prevention and use of child soldiers in armed conflict. And so we commemorate this day because we want to make sure that children are prevented from being recruited and to be used by armed groups in any conflict. And some of the success that we've had so far has to do with the case management, whereby children who are released into the the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, they are first reach the transit center, whereby through case management, they are identified with the types of needs they have, such as psychosocial support needs, vocational needs, and so forth. They go through health screening, and they are provided with the services. So all of this is the start of the case management. The next step is really about family tracing, to find out where these children are from, where are their communities and homes of origins. And then through the course of this, while they're getting their health screening, their basic literacy and numeracy skills, the psychosocial support and mental health, then when the time that they return and release to go back to their communities, they would have already started with education, and they can seamlessly be integrated back into the basic education system within their communities. So these are some of the success of our reintegration support to the government.
All right, Fong, now over time, how has the partnership between the UNICEF, the Borno State government, and other partners been strengthened to tackle the use of children in armed conflict or even as child soldiers?
Yes. So UNICEF has been working very closely with the government of Borno and the government of Nigeria at large on a number of issues, including really advocating for the legal framework to prevent the use of child soldiers in conflict. And we also, in September 2022, the UN signed with the government of Nigeria the handover protocol, whereby children who are encountered in armed conflicts, when they are released, we want to make sure that they are released to the civilian government so that we can provide them with the psychosocial support, the reintegration package. And so this is some of the areas that we have been supporting. Also, we work with the Borno governments to have child laws in place. And that those particular laws really look after the welfare of children and making sure that children are not recruited, that they are not utilized by armed groups, whether within the military or other non-state actors. So these are some of the areas that we've been working very closely with the government of Nigeria.
All right, so, all these efforts, put in definitely cannot be easy. What are some of the challenges faced, especially in reintegrating these children into society, and how have these challenges been overcome?
Yes, so with us, UNICEF, we really want to concentrate on the sustainable long-term solution. And so in this respect, we work very closely, not only with the government, but also the communities to make sure that when children are reintegrated back into their homes and communities of origin, that they are accepted, that they are welcome to come back, that they are provided with the necessary psychosocial support within the community as well, and to make sure that they are accepted and that the community welcome them as children with the rights of any other child to have education, to have psychosocial support, protection, shelter, food, health, water sanitation. So we really work closely with social workers of the government, as well as religious and community leaders, to make sure that these children are welcome with open arms, accepted, loved, and to be provided with the basic services that they all need.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Fong Nguyen, for joining me on the news and speaking on your efforts to help integrate these child soldiers back into the society. We appreciate you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Former Nigerian President General Yakubu Gowon, retired, has called for a speedy solution of the ongoing crisis in ECOWAS. General Gowon made this known after a brief meeting with President Bola Tinubu, saying he had come to discuss with the president plans to resolve the ongoing impasse, which has seen Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso exit the regional community. This was occasioned by sanctions from the bloc after military takeovers in the 3 West African states. Now to discuss this, I'm joined by foreign policy expert Bolu Michael B. Hello, Bolu. Thank you so much for joining me on the news.
Yeah, good day.
All right, so what does the absence of the 3 Sahel nations mean for the African continent, especially in terms of security and economic growth?
Well, it's a huge setback, because the agenda of the African Union is to integrate the African continent as much as possible. And there are already existing, regional blocks within the continent. However, seeing that there's another bloc being formed known as the AES is a huge setback in terms of security, because now it's going to be difficult for intelligence sharing, for instance, and then there's a possibility of easy spillover of countries of conflicts from these countries to other neighboring countries. Economically, definitely stifles trade because they're not in good terms with their neighboring countries and other countries within the region. It might be difficult for trade to take place, and that affects the citizens as well.
So, Bolu, all 3 countries are under leadership of the military who ousted, that's the heads who actually ousted democratically elected heads of state. What message does lifting the sanctions send to other African states?
Well, there are 2 sides to the coin. It depends on which perspective one wants to choose, because if seeing that they've been lifting the sanction might actually promote dialogue between ECOWAS and these 3 countries, and another thing is on the flip side might actually embolden other countries to want to have stage coups, and the consequence of the ECOWAS not taking proactive action and being punitive at first instance is that countries that have issues with the region, with the regional bloc, may use the threat of leaving the bloc as a tool in negotiation instead of employing, just plain diplomacy and having negotiations and conversations. So there are 2 sides of the coin, and it depends on which perspective one wants to choose.
All right, Bolu, now these 3 Sahel countries have actually said that they feel threatened by the ECOWAS bloc. Now, I want you to tell me if you feel this is actually factual. In essence, what I'm trying to say is it true that the bloc actually folds its hands when mismanagement and poor leadership go on in such states, but goes active when there is a coup?
The thing is that, well, if one listens to the leaders of this AES states, they have legitimate reasons to have that fear or to have that feeling of being threatened, because they want their military government to stay on, and ECOWAS wants something else. So they definitely would feel threatened because they have a regional body that does not want them to exist. However, ECOWAS can also argue that it's not all about installing the democracy in the sub-region, in the region. It's also about peacekeeping, and they can cite example of missions and activities, missions that ECOWAS has done successfully in terms of economy, free movement of persons. They can argue it's not only about just democracy. So again, there are two sides to it, and both the ECOWAS and the AES, they will have legitimate reasons to back their points in a way.
All right, well, thank you so much, Bolu, for joining me on the news and also for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're watching News Central now. Coming up after the break, 13-year-old shoots his principal at Gauteng School in South Africa. We'll bring you more of the details after the break. The news continues in South Africa, where the South African Federation of Trade Unions say it is disappointed by Finance Minister Eno Godongwana's cutting the inflation-adjusted budgets of nearly every part of the state, while raising the budget for subsidizing corporations via the Economic Affairs cluster. Now, the union says the budget does not reflect on the working class and marginalized poor demands, as it is a continuation of the market-led budget. Meanwhile, South Africa's economy is facing a tipping point, with growth estimates from analysts and researchers pointing downwards. Continual rolling blackouts are showing little sign of stopping, while port and rail inefficiencies and a high sovereign credit risk remain threats to economic growth in the country. Now, to discuss this further, I'm joined by spokesperson, South African Federation of Trade Unions, Trevor Shaku. Hello, Trevor. Thank you so much for joining me on the news.
Good evening, and thanks for having us.
All right, can we have your reactions to the budget statement put forward by the finance minister? And we also would want your opinion. What were the key shortcomings or areas of neglect in the budget as it pertains to workers' interests?
Sure. The South African Federation of Trade Unions is not happy with the budget speech and the budget review as tabled yesterday by the finance minister. One of the areas in which we would have liked the minister to address, of course, was to ensure that the budget is not an austerity budget. In other words, that there are no budget cuts which are administered on local government, on public service institutions, and on state companies. And unfortunately, we have not seen any state investment in the state-owned enterprises. They have not announced anything. And in fact, the neoliberal economists were hailing and celebrating that fact, saying that the state companies are not going to get any money from the state. The second area is the issue of public services. In the public services, which is where education, healthcare, correctional service, policing, traffic, and social development are administered, is also receiving lesser allocations for the 2024-2025 financial year. And if you, for instance, look at that particular amount and measure it by the inflation rate, especially in the medium-term expenditure framework, which will start this year and last until 2026-2027, you realize there that all of the allocations which have been allocated to this department are way below the inflation rate over the medium term. And in that, it means that there's going to be real decline of resources that are allocated to the departments. Now, what is the impact of these real declines? The impact of these real declines is the fact that the public institutions are not going to be able to deliver public services of quality because of lack of funds. Now, the third area, which was not addressed, is the question of local government, where, for instance, infrastructure funds for local government have been reduced, and as a result, it means that our communities, in addition to corruption, which has gripped local government in particular, austerity is just going to worsen such particular conditions.
All right, Trevor, but do you believe that the budget adequately addresses the needs and concerns of the workers that you represent? If you don't, how do you think the budget statement would actually impact the livelihoods, and the working conditions of these workers?
It does not address the concerns of the workers we represent. For instance, our workers have to be looked at in two phases, especially when it comes to government services. So you have to look at them first as workers in the public service, and the public service is employing about 1.2 million of our workers. But secondly, we've got to look at workers as consumers of public service themselves. Now, in this instance, let's start with the first area, of workers as workers in the public service. Now, one is that they are not going to receive above inflation increases, especially if you look at the projected increase to the compensation bill. If anything, the Minister of Finance wants to arrest the compensation bill that will be given not only to the public service workers, but also to workers in local government. So that is the first area. But the second area is that by not increasing the public service compensation bill, the minister is going to cause a further problem, which result in overcrowding in classrooms, for instance, but on the side of our workers, it results in work overload because there is understaffing in schools, there is understaffing in clinics, hospitals, there is understaffing in social development, there's understaffing in correctional service and home affairs. In all these departments, it is the workers who are our members who are going to carry the burden of work overload. Now, looking at the second element of workers as the consumers of public services, it means therefore that because there is the funding of public service in terms of infrastructure, in terms of equipment, in terms of goods, and in terms of staffing, therefore, it will compromise the public services which are given to our people. In other words, we are going to continue to see the poor services given to our people in healthcare, where people who are not supposed to be dying are dying because of neglect. And this neglect would have been caused because there are not enough staff to man the people who are in that particular hospital. Okay. We have also seen this consequence on the side of our children because the children in the public schools are our children. And therefore, if there is little staff in schools and causes overcrowding, it means that our children are not able to learn under conducive conditions.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Trevor, for joining me on the news and speaking on this.
Thank you very much.
Now, still in South Africa, a 13-year-old learner has been arrested for shooting the principal of Primrose Primary School in Johannesburg, raising concerns about school violence. The boy appeared in Germiston Magistrate Court for the first time, charged with attempted murder. The learner allegedly used his father's gun, who has also been charged with weapons carelessness. The two appeared in court on Tuesday. Now, according to the investigations, the child created a hit list of 3 teachers who were causing him issues at school and whom he intended to shoot, and had been preparing this horrific attack with his friends via a WhatsApp group. Meanwhile, safety in schools has been a major concern in South Africa as the shooting comes weeks after a student was stabbed to death and another injured at a secondary school south of Johannesburg. Despite hardships, the Khoi and San people of South Africa have tried to preserve their cultural heritage and traditions. In recent years, they've refocused on the value of Khoi and San culture, working to conserve their languages, traditions, and customs. Bushmen or hunter-gatherers have traditionally lived in southern Africa's dry regions, particularly the Kalahari Desert. The San have distinct languages, customs, and spiritual beliefs that are strongly related to their relationship with the land and also animals. News Central's Bongani Siziba was in the Kalahari Desert in the Northern Cape and captured some of their fascinating routines.
As the scorching sun beats down the vast expanse of the Kalahari Desert, its residents, Khoisan tribe people, are going about their daily routines. During my visit to this area, I was struck by how much this generation values their heritage. They value their traditions, ceremonies, and language. All of this determines who they are. I was captivated by their identification and their relationship with one another. Meet Stanley Joste, fondly known as Port in this area, a descendant of the Khoisan people who call the Kalahari Desert their home. Despite the modern world encroaching on their way of life in these arid lands, Stanley still traverses the desert landscape, hunting and seeking out traditional medicines, also embracing the ancient practices. But Stanley's dedication to preserving his heritage extends beyond survival skills. He is also an artist who specializes in sculpting ornaments inspired by their rich cultural heritage.
I had learned by my father and my mother that stuff, and now I do it just further. And my grandies had learned them these works. So that work is just going further on for the smallest and at least the eldest too.
His creation serves as a bridge between the past and the present, offering visitors a glimpse into the artistry and craftsmanship of the Khoi people. Tourists from far and wide flock to this village to admire his work and learn about his customs.
You see, my tradition are the Sa. Now what we do is not to remind with other peoples, is we commit with our peoples. That's our stuff.
Each ornament here tells a story, a piece of their heritage preserved in every curve and design. Through his art, he is passing down wisdom and stories.
Now you see the other thing is, as the young ones growing up, I always must speak with them, let them know the culture must be going further up.
The San people are the oldest inhabitants of Southern Africa, having lived there for at least 20,000 years. The name San is often employed, referred to a range collection of hunter-gatherers in Southern Africa who share the historic and cultural roots. The San people are also known as Bushmen, although this word has since been dropped as it is deemed demeaning. And in this village, Stanley is a living testament to the resilience and beauty of the Khoisan people. Each day, as the desert glows in the golden light of the rising and setting sun, there is a timeless backdrop to a culture that continues to strive against all odds. In the Kalahari Desert in Northern Cape, for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Quite an interesting report there. Now, a new outbreak of violence in northern Mozambique, the site of a jihadi insurgency, has forced thousands of people into fleeing their homes, according to United Nations numbers and Cabo Delgado province officials. An alert from the United Nations Migration Agency says recent attacks in the Makomia, Chure and Mekufi districts have relocated 13,088 individuals, the majority of whom are children. The recent escape from the settlement of Ochoa was the result of retaliatory assaults after Mozambican and Rwandan forces foiled an effort to kidnap children. Mozambique's President, Felipe Nyusi, confirmed increased population movements but downplayed the threat, claiming security personnel had the situation under control. The news continues after this break. And now in the world of sports, hundreds of grieving people paid an emotional tribute on Thursday to marathon prodigy Kelvin Kiptum, who died in a car crash earlier this month. His coffin, encircled with flowers, was carried in a hearse through Kenya's long-distance running hub of Eldoret, some watching in silence, others singing hymns. Kiptum's mother, Mary Kangongo, and his wife, Asenat Rotich, were inconsolable at the mortuary as the wooden coffin was loaded into the black hearse. A married father of two, Kiptum was to be laid to rest on Friday in Naiberi near Eldoret, where the government is building a new home for the family. World Athletics head Sebastian Coe and Kenyan President William Ruto were to be among those attending the funeral.
Pia apata nafasi kuwakilisha Kenya katika Olimpiki mwezi wa 8, na hiyo ingekuwa moto, ingekuwa Olimpiki ya kihistoria kwa sababu.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Ighodalo has been declared winner of Edo PDP governorship primaries. We also told you that Lagos State Governor has rolled out measures to cushion effect of economic hardship. Finally, you heard that violence in Mozambique's northern region has displaced thousands. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do you follow us on social media? We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.